Right, time now for a look at...
Hello there, you're watching the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. Over the next half an hour, we're going to be talking about the headlines with the Observer's chief leader writer, Sonia Sodha, and the political journalist, Isabel Oakeshott. So, hello, both of you. So let's take a look then at the front pages. And the Metro leads with Theresa May's assertion that a Brexit deal with the EU is now within our grasp. The Financial Times reports that having failed to win over Eurosceptic Tory MPs yet again, the Prime Minister now plans to turn to the business community for support. Now let's get on with it is how the Mail summarises her message to business and to the public. The Daily Express highlights just how few MPs stayed to hear the end of Mrs May's speech at the Commons about the proposal. While the Daily Telegraph says Tory MPs have told the Prime Minister to junk the backstop. According to The Guardian, the Prime Minister is battling on all fronts to save her Brexit deal. Although The Sun describes that deal as Black Friday, from which the UK gets what it calls diddly squat. The Mirror leads with the Manchester bombing and the report that says that MI5 missed 4 chances to stop the attacker. The Times leads with calls by MPs for advertisers to shun sites like Facebook and Google until they take firm action over online terrorist material. The Eye claims an exclusive that cash-strapped British universities are trying to persuade the government to allow in more foreign students. And The Star has some happy news that following a sabbatical for personal reasons, comedian Peter Kay is apparently ready to get back to work. So let's get stuck into some of those stories with Sonia Sodha and Isabel Oakeshott, and an awful lot of reaction to Theresa May's announcement that she's approved a document outlining UK's future relationship with the EU, fleshed out the 7 pages that were released with the withdrawal agreement last week.
26 pages.
26. The
Even
Sun's
I've got
verdict.
the energy to read all of those.
So the Sun says Black Friday.
Yeah,
it
we're
Black
scraping
Friday.
the barrel a bit there on the headlines.
I quite like that. I like the sentiment. So they take 39 billion from us and we get diddly squat, which is pretty much how Brexiteers see it. Very representative of the number of papers that go with that quite critical angle. The Express is also extremely critical tomorrow. But then the Daily Mail is giving some welcome support for Theresa May. And, you know, perhaps she's thinking tonight that a deal is somehow within her grasp. I don't know, but she's, if so, I think she's probably living in clouds cuckoo land. The majority of MPs are still not going to support what she proposes to put to them. So a long way to go yet.
Well, yes, and it seems that even though the document, one of the criticisms is that it's quite vague. I think Jeremy Corbyn talked about it being a leap in the dark and talked about
it is incredibly vague. I mean, about a
sixth. With Jeremy Corbyn, oh my goodness.
It's an unusual situation. I mean, about a sixth of it is about data protection. I found that incredible, you know, and it's just full of sort of warm words and none of it really.
Well, presumably
means
the point of that is to try to keep on side as many people as possible, but it appears that lots of people are critical of it on both sides.
Yes, I mean, I think that's right. I mean, nobody, apart from some May loyalists, no one really seems to have embraced either the withdrawal agreement or the political declaration, which is the bit of the agreement that's meant to shape our future relationship. And what you've seen really with the political declaration is, it is, as lots of people have said, it's incredibly vague. I mean, it seems to have united Remainers, former Remainers, with hard Brexiteers in their critique. And what it's done really is, you know, there are some very difficult trade-offs that we need to make if we're going to leave the EU around, you know, how much control do we give up over our own, you know, how much sort of do we become a rule taker from the EU?
Well, not at all, in my view.
Well, yeah, but then there's cost to that. You have to be more distant from the single market. There's a big economic price to pay. So these are difficult trade-offs. The Prime Minister has never really properly been honest with the nation about the fact that those trade-offs exist. And what the political declaration does is just kick all those difficult trade-offs even more into the long grass. So the criticism is, we're signed up to this withdrawal agreement, you know, or we might sign up to it. We're going to leave the EU, and nobody really knows what this final Brexit deal is going to look like. So that is why May has done something quite extraordinary, which is that she seems seem to have united Jacob Rees-Mogg and Jeremy Corbyn around a position.
And let's take a look at The Guardian's front page, which kind of reflects that, really. May battles on all fronts to save her Brexit deal. And yet, as far as Brexiteers are concerned, there were a few lines in that intended, presumably, to get them on side.
Well, for
reiterating
example,
ending free movement.
Yeah, so that would be...
Talking about a future in pursuing independent trade deals.
That would be the key. I mean, on the free movement, that is very much something that Downing Street has highlighted as a big win out of this. But there's been such a loss of trust amongst those who voted for Brexit in the whole Downing Street approach to this, that I actually don't think they're getting any political upside, even on the free movement. I think that many people who voted for Brexit don't really believe it'll make any difference. They don't know quite when free movement is going to end, and they don't trust anything that's coming out of Number 10 on this. And on the £39 billion, people are left wondering, what on earth are we getting for our money? What are we getting for the £39 billion?
That payment is for the transition period. It's money that we legally owe. It's all of our legal obligations to the EU until the end of the budgetary period. So if we'd said, well, we're just not going to pay that, well, we'd have been looking at a no-deal scenario.
Yeah, which many people would be quite happy with. I mean, £39 billion would go a long way to offsetting some of the difficulties of no deal.
Actually, no. If you look at the sort of economic pain that would be involved with no deal, it would far outweigh if you look at estimates from people like the Independent Office for Budget Responsibility.
Because they usually get it wrong.
If you don't believe the experts, Isabel, you know, what can I say? But it's going to cost far more than £39 billion to leave the EU with no deal.
Let's take a look at the Mail's front page, because you mentioned, Isabel, that they were relatively sympathetic, and they do go with Theresa May's plea, now let's get on with it. And it appears that she's trying to talk to the public over the heads of MPs, if you like, and say, people want us to get on with it, and hope that means
and
that
it's
MPs
very
will rally
difficult for voters to
cause.
know what to believe, because yes, on the face of it, it sounds great. You hear the Prime Minister saying we're getting free movement, at the end of free movement of people, we are taking back control of our laws, we're no longer this, we're no longer that. And then you've got the Brexiteers on the other side saying this is all nonsense, because when you read the small print, it actually is nonsense, and that political declaration...
Our laws, our money and our borders.
Well, virtually none of this is happening.
This comes back to the trade-offs and the fact that there are trade-offs. And the political declaration, like, you know, pretty much everything that May has sort of told the public so far skirts around those trade-offs. And it does pretend that we can have it all. It pretends we can end freedom of movement. We can take control back. There doesn't have to be a problem with the Northern Irish border. And these are the hard things that are going to get hammered out if we do leave after we've already left, and that just doesn't seem very democratic to me.
So she's not only got problems at home, but also some of the other EU countries are a little bit unhappy about it.
Yeah,
so it's interesting, very 11th hour, Spain is now kicking off about Gibraltar. And, you know, they've had all these months, all these years when they could have actually flagged up some of
Presumably they're upset about this particular document, are they?
Yeah, I think so. I think Spain's very unhappy about it. And we've seen tonight the Spanish Prime Minister on Twitter threatening to veto Brexit. Now, Spain can't do that at this stage by themselves, because the EU has something called qualified majority voting, which will kick in around this agreement. There needs to be more than one country who's opposed. You need to have a very healthy majority in order to pass something. But I do think, you know, there probably is a risk that Spain could take a country or two along with it, and then you'd be looking at more difficulties. But, you know, the overwhelming sense from Merkel, from Macron, is, you know, this is negotiated now. We're not going to revisit it. And actually, if they were going to revisit it, May might ask for some more things. But there are things that the EU is, you know, compromised on, is maybe not that happy about in the withdrawal agreement. So, the line seems to be pretty firm. We will have to see if that changes, if the deal gets voted down in Parliament, and whether leaders in Europe take a different view.
Absolutely, and it appears that most people seem to think that the deal will get voted down, certainly at the first
I think unless
reading.
there's some drastic change, and it's hard to see what that could be at this stage, then the sums just don't add up for the Prime Minister. It's almost certainly going to be thrown out. But as Sonia says, it may well be brought back. I suspect that there will be some kind of concession on the Northern Ireland backstop, which is what all the fire and brimstone is focused on, and then MPs may well vote it through. But at the moment, really no chance.
And in the meantime, as we say, Theresa May appears to be trying to appeal to voters as well, and also to business. And that takes us to page 4 of The Sun. It's also on the front of the Financial Times as well.
Yeah.
And she seemed to have the CBI coming in behind her deal, certainly the withdrawal element, didn't she?
Yeah, we've known for a long time that this was going to be the Prime Minister's strategy, because we've seen, you know, leaked press strategies strategies. She was relying on business to come out and say, we back this deal. And the CBI did
Duly
in
came
public.
out.
It did. But actually, this is quite embarrassing for the Prime Minister now. So leaked emails.
And for the CBI.
And for the CBI. So through leaked emails, it's emerged that senior staff have said, actually, we don't need to give credit to the negotiators in the press release because it's not a good deal. So what's being said behind the scenes at the CBI would seem to kind of undermine the public line. And in many ways, I think that's not a surprise. I think businesses sort of looked at this, thought, well, it's probably not that great, but it's the best we're going to get. We need the certainty, so we better weigh in behind the Prime Minister.
And they would probably argue it's one individual and who doesn't speak necessarily for
Sure.
all businesses, but who knows what their defence is. Shall we just move on quickly to the Telegraph front page, because you did want to pick up the Mac cartoon.
I wanted to pick up the Mac cartoon because I think this combines Black Friday and Brexit with perhaps
slightly better than Black
for this on front
Friday.
page.
I don't know if we can see it clearly, so you might have to read
so
out.
I'll describe it. So
Yeah.
we've got someone in front of a screen. It says Black Friday, and the caption is "A bad deal is better than no deal." So I think that's a very funny combining of two big stories tomorrow.
And there it is. And so there'll be plenty more discussion about how far she'll get with these various agreements over the days ahead. But for the moment, we're going to take a pause and a break. And coming up, a row erupts in the village of Wool. After all, every press preview needs a bit of fluff, it says there. That's not me.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I hope that's